Ocala's information station, 1370 WOCA.
Ocala.
All right, 7 minutes after 9 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. I'm looking forward to this next interview, and I have been looking forward to it ever since I knew we were going to speak to our next guest. I'm going to start with a little story. In 1928, my mother celebrated her 3rd birthday party. She was a little girl on a boat coming to America with her brother, who I believe was 5 years older than her, so he would have been 8. And their mother, my grandmother, and I believe she would have been about 28 years old. My grandfather had already come to America. They were coming here from Germany. He had been here a year and found work and then found a way. He had somebody sponsor him or whatever they did, whatever they do, whatever the rules are, he did it. And then, of course, sent for them. And many, many years later, I went to Ellis Island with my son, Alex. And we stood in what is now basically, I don't know if you consider it a museum, but it's just an empty building with lots of history and some large black and white photographs of what once was commonplace there. And I stood in this large empty hall on Ellis Island, and I imagined it bubbling with people. I imagined that in that crowd was my mother somewhere, a little 3-year-old, my grandmother, my uncle. I imagined them all there. And I went after that, after I came back home to Florida, I went online and I paid whatever you paid to that, when you look up your ancestors and stuff. And I actually found, believe it or not, the passenger list from the ship that they were on.
Nice.
Handwritten. I don't know who does these things, but I actually found the handwritten list, and I, of course, kept a copy of it and saved it in my computer. Hope my computer never dies. And so the whole idea that for most of us, we in America, for most of us, we have a story similar to that. Maybe it wasn't your grandmother, maybe it was maybe it was your mother or your father. Maybe it was you. Or maybe it was, 200 years ago. But somebody somewhere came here, unless you're a Native American, and of course there are some of those as well. But this country is truly, truly made up of so many people like that, with so many stories. And when you think about the immigrants today, the modern immigrants, and you wonder, are they going through the same struggle with the language, the same struggle with the culture, the same broken-hearted, I left home and feel terrible feeling, It's got to be. It's got to be the same. And I don't know if political feelings were the same back then as they are now. I mean, we have so many emotional discussions whenever we speak about immigration. Diane Portnoy is on the phone, and she is the daughter of Polish Holocaust survivors. She's the founder of the Immigrant Learning Center, which provides free English classes to immigrant and refugee adults. She's the recipient of the Ellis Island Medal of Honor Lifetime Achievement Award. How cool is that? And she received that, by the way, for working with immigrants and refugees. And her book sounds awesome. We don't have a copy, do we?
No, but it's en route.
It's called Immigrant Struggles, Immigrant Gifts, True Stories of Immigrants' Motivations for Leaving Their Home Countries, the Obstacles They Face to Advancement and Inclusion, Their Culture and Occupational Trends in the United States, Their Assimilation and Acculturation, I said that wrong, and Their Accomplishments and Contributions to American Life. Well, that's a long subtitle. Diane Portnoy, I am so looking forward to this conversation. Good morning, Diane.
Good morning, and thank you, Larry.
Where are you? Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Boston, Massachusetts, where it's very, very cold.
Wow.
But sunny.
And you're the daughter of Polish Holocaust survivors.
Yes, actually, my parents were Polish Jews who did survive the Holocaust, but they lost their entire families.
Oh, my goodness.
And your story is so similar to mine because I was born a year after World War II ended in a part of Poland that actually became part of Germany. Everything was split up after World War II. I was born in East Germany, and when I was a few months old and the Russians took over, it became very, very dangerous for Jews to stay in East Germany.
Yeah.
And so my parents, with me as an infant, paid somebody to smuggle us across the border into the American sector. And we lived in West Germany, in Stuttgart, for about 3 years. And then in 1948, the United States passed the Displaced Persons Act, where they provided for about 450,000 visas to those who were displaced because of World War II. And about 190,000 of them went to Jews. My parents applied. It was a lottery system, and we were permitted to immigrate to this country. I was 3.5 years old.
My goodness.
Yes, it's the same story. And we came on a government boat, a converted battleship. Men on one side of the boat, women and children on the other. It was a rough crossing. I became so sick on this crossing that when we arrived at Ellis Island, they would not permit me into the country. And my mother and I were quarantined for about 10 days at the infamous Ellis Island Hospital. But obviously I survived.
Right.
As did my parents.
Do you remember those days, or is
you know, Larry, I remember nothing. I have one memory of the crossing. And I know this might seem a little mushy, but I actually remember feeling very sick. And somehow my father got hold of an orange. And I have this vision of standing outside on the boat and his slowly feeding me little pieces of oranges. And it made me feel better. That's my only recollection.
Well, that is mushy, but it's a beautiful mushy. Yeah.
Yes, and it was very special. So we settled in a place called Malden, Massachusetts, because there was work there. My father found out he would be able to get a job there. And I actually grew up in an immigrant community. Most of the people in this particular neighborhood were Holocaust survivors. My parents, of all my parents' friends, Larry, they are the only ones that found each other after the war. All the other ones lost spouses and children during the Holocaust and then proceeded to start new families. They remarried. They had children. So I saw firsthand the strength, the courage, the resilience, the work ethic, and most of them started businesses, including my own parents. They created jobs. Somehow they learned the language. It wasn't easy, but they did learn the language, although for many years I translated for my parents. And then when I started the Immigrant Learning Center, I see exactly the same thing. It doesn't matter what country these students are from. When I opened the school, most of the students were primarily from Eastern Europe. It was 1992. The wall had come down. Russia permitted people to immigrate, and there are many, many Vietnamese in the school. Today, we'll see many Haitians, especially after the earthquake in Haiti 2 years ago.
Oh, really?
Yes, and we see many Middle Easterners, many Muslims. Nothing's changed. The hopes, the dreams, the reasons that they come here, their desire, that they all want better for their children. Can't begin to tell you how many of them talk about how fabulous the freedoms in this country are. You can actually practice your religion in this country and not be harassed.
We take
so many that is just amazing.
We take so much for granted, don't we?
We do.
Yeah.
And in return, I have found that they give 110% of themselves. And so with this book, it shows how every ethnic group, including the Germans, who during the revolutionary period were considered inferior, and the same things that we say about immigrants today, the same rhetoric that their culture's different, they're dirty, they just come here to live off of welfare, or they're taking our jobs away, they're all criminals.
Right.
The same things were said then. Certainly the same things were said about Irish, the Know-Nothing Party, which reaches zenith around 1850. Same things certainly were said about Asians. We had the Chinese Exclusion Act in 1882. No one from China was permitted into the country. That wasn't changed until about 1940, 1950, I think. We had the Gentleman's Agreement with Japan, where we pretty much didn't permit anyone to immigrate from Japan. So we've seen this over and over again, and each group has to deal, unfortunately, with this nativism, quote-unquote. and some of it over the past pretty virulent. You had riots, hangings. With Germans, you mentioned your family. At one point, it became illegal to even speak German, especially during World War I and after World War I, or to have German language schools. Of course, this has changed today. So we see the same pattern over and over again.
The irony in my own family is that my grandfather fought in the German army in World War I, and his son, my uncle, fought in the American army in World War II. Yeah.
Only in America, Larry. But, that's what makes this country so special. I can remember being 8 years old and going with my parents when they were sworn in to become citizens. And it was a very magical day for them. They were very excited. They were very happy.
I bet, yeah.
And about 6 months later, this little 8.5-year-old went to City Hall. I got my papers. I can't begin to tell you how my parents, their friends, and certainly the students at the school, and I talked to many, many immigrants, over 7,300 at the school since I opened it, their real love for their country, this country, an appreciation for what they have here. That doesn't mean they don't miss their friends. They don't miss their culture.
Right. Well, help me understand something, since you actually lived through this. And I've heard those stories. My mom has passed away, but I remember hearing her talk about how they had this German-American club because pretty much everybody else didn't like them for a while, especially during the 40s. And they had been here since the 20s. So
that's right.
So the I guess the attitude of the country changed because of Hitler, obviously. And I don't know if it was desperation or just intuition that caused my grandfather to get out of there before the whole thing fell apart.
He was very smart. Yeah.
But anyway, I always wondered this, and you would know, why, since we have there's so much greatness about America that makes America great, that a lot of times immigrants are the ones who really appreciate it more than the people who grew up here. Why do you still embrace it when you have so much, I guess prejudice is the right word, against you, not by everybody, but by enough people to make it seem uncomfortable? But yet you still love the country.
Yes. I hear stories. I can't explain it. There are three things that I always hear from my students about America when I start talking to them when they first come here. And again, I'm going to say it again. It is not easy to leave your own country, to leave family and friends, to have to learn a new language, to have to learn a new culture, to learn, in the Boston area, you have to learn how to use the subway to get around. But still, they will always say to me, Diane, for the first time in my life, I feel safe. Because so many come from war-torn countries.
Yeah.
I feel safe for my children. Number two, again, the freedom. This incredible freedom. I know if I work hard and I learn the language and I'm willing to work, 18 hours a day, whatever, I can make things better. And number three, hope. This country still presents hope. It is still this beacon of light. I hope it always will be, because immigrants are what makes the United States so special. And if you we have a public education institute at the Immigrant Learning Center, which I set up after 9/11 because of this dramatic increase in anti-immigrant rhetoric and sentiment after 9/11. Our students were afraid to come to school because strangers would yell terrible things at them as they walked down the street.
Oh.
Yeah. And people actually said to me, Diane, the problem with this country is immigrants. And I was so taken aback by this. And I said, there's just so much misinformation out there, the stereotypes out there. So we developed a public education program, and the bulk of it is we commission research to look at how immigrants positively impact the country, the economy, and our communities, but especially the economy, as entrepreneurs, workers, and consumers. And I don't know if people realize that immigrants are entrepreneurs. They always have been. They're twice as likely to start their own business.
Well, they almost have no choice, right?
No, they have choices.
They do?
They can find work, but some of them, they feel they have no choice. But some of them are taking a real risk, aren't they?
Well, you know what? We've observed this many times. There's a family that owns a like a convenience store / gas station.
Yeah.
And the whole family works the whole thing.
That's right.
And eventually they make enough money with that they get another one, or they build another type of a business. But when they're first here, it's like they've pooled their resources. And how many Americans born here never will do that?
Yeah, immigrants generally. I have a wonderful story. We, like I said, we've done a lot of research, and one of the women that we interviewed that has her own business, it's a very, very successful publishing business, actually. And she said, well, she's Chinese, and she wanted to start this business. And she went to the bank, and the bank asked her for a business plan. And she looked at them. What's a business plan? And so immigrants in general do pool resources. They save money. And they tend not to access other capital, except perhaps in the technology area, engineering technology area. I know there are a lot of businesses that are venture-backed, that are immigrant-owned. So immigrants do pool resources, so they tend to have small businesses that revitalize neighborhoods. They tend to have growth businesses where they begin to hire people and really create jobs. And then, of course, you have the larger business. 40% of Fortune 500 companies were founded by an immigrant or the child of an immigrant. So you have 25% of the technology companies nationwide were started by at least one immigrant. In Silicon Valley, there was a time when over half of the technology companies were started by an immigrant. Here in Massachusetts, immigrants are 14% of the population. They pay 16% of the state taxes.
Well, and if you went back a few generations, that 14% would go way up.
Yes.
Because if you're referring to immigrants as only those who are literally, like yourself, an immigrant. I mean, they literally were born somewhere else, and then they came here. So
Yes.
Yeah.
So when you work with the immigrants and the refugees, you make sure that they get the proper paperwork and the proper sponsors and things like that.
Actually, what we do, Robin, is we provide English language classes. So what we do is we help them learn the English language, reading, writing, speaking, and listening to English. And we do it through life skills. So, you have to learn how to navigate a very complex health, education, economic systems. We have computer classes, we have a theater class, we have a family literacy program. There are many, many ways, that you can actually learn the language, the subject matter that you use to learn the language. When it gets down to the legal area, we don't have that expertise. However, we collaborate with other organizations that do. So when someone is ready, we have a citizenship preparation class, for example. When someone is ready to apply for citizenship, they can get the papers, we can help with that. Or if they have legal problems, there are legal aid societies that can help them.
We have, I think, across the country, we have different ethnicities represented by the immigrants, and the big catchphrase of the day is undocumented immigrant or illegal immigrant. I
call them aspiring Americans.
Oh, that's good. That's good. But the one thing I've tried to point out many times is that if there is, for example, an illegal immigrant taking the job of somebody who else could be working who's not an immigrant, and that person is not documented or aspiring or illegal, however you want to say it, I often say, well, I don't blame them. And because and I'm not saying I know any of them personally, but I've seen, I used to do my laundry at a laundromat, and I used to go to this laundromat and see what I believe were probably illegal or undocumented immigrants. And they were as sweet as could be. They were clearly Mexican, and they were working the farms in this area.
That's right.
I think. My feeling is they're here to provide a better life for themselves and their families, and they don't have a clue that what they're doing is illegal because they're being lured by these farms that will pay them less, and the farms do it so they can, have a better bottom line.
They're making a profit.
Yeah.
They have to make a profit.
And I don't know that that's true across the board, but I just get the feeling that we're blaming the wrong person. Or
There's actually another side to this picture. And again, I'm going to go back to research that's done. In most cases, immigrants do not take away jobs from the native-born. So if you're talking about the quote-unquote aspiring Americans or people that are here undocumented, they tend to do the jobs that most native-born people won't do or are too educated to do, or they want different kinds of jobs. There was a wonderful article I read about a year and a half ago in Washington State. They had passed some laws that were somewhat anti-immigrant, and when the minute you do that, all immigrants leave. I mean, the laws might only deal with the undocumented, but immigrants get very nervous. They move, and they're very mobile. They'll go where the work is. Washington State, they needed people to pick apples. And many of the immigrants had left the area. And they were paying, I think, $8 or $10 an hour with benefits.
Wow.
That's right, with benefits. And they could not get, the first day 30 people showed up. The next day, 8 showed up. By the third day, there were 3 people working.
No, that's not good.
So I think this is the other side of it, that immigrants they really don't take away the jobs of the native-born. They're either creating jobs or they're doing a lot of the work, like you say, the farm work. I don't know how many people want to go out there, working on the farms. It's grueling work. And they're willing to do this.
Yeah. It is. There's no question about it. The problem, Diane, is that I'm so enjoying the conversation. I hope we've been fair to the book. I don't think we have been. The book is called Immigrant Struggles, Immigrant Gifts, True Stories of Immigrants' Motivations. So in the book, let's just to be fair and try to make up for some lost time here, did you, in the book, include stories of modern-day contemporary immigrants?
We have a chapter on Mexicans, and we have a chapter on Muslims, because I think those are the modern-day groups that are probably feeling the greatest amount of nativism right now. Certainly after 9/11, with all the terrorist attacks, it's very difficult for Muslims. And Mexicans, of course, everyone just assumes that a Mexican is an undocumented person who's coming here to live on welfare or to have a baby so the baby will be an American citizen, which is just ridiculous. And just in terms of Mexicans, do you know that 50,000 Mexicans a month open a business?
No, I did not know that. I did not know that.
Yes. This came out of Partnership for New American Economy, which is Mayor Bloomberg heads that group. 50,000 Mexicans a month create a job. Or if you look at Muslims or Middle Easterners throughout the nation, they're entrepreneurs, they're professionals. The vast majority are just trying to live their lives the way your mother or your grandmother wanted to live her life. And in the process, look, what did her children become? And her grandson is, look, on a radio station.
That's right.
This is pretty good.
But actually, what you're saying is something we try to express a lot. When there was such anti-Muslim sentiment that we were hearing on the radio from listeners, I would always say that it's adding to the problem. It doesn't help because there's 2 little Muslim children in my neighborhood, and I know they're Muslim. They get off the school bus and they've got the clothing that identifies them. Now these kids are innocent. They don't mean any harm. But if you're teaching your children that this is how you identify people we shouldn't like, that's just another problem that needs to be fixed. And better than fixing it is not getting it started in the first place. I have enjoyed the conversation, Diane. I knew it was going to be this way. I knew the half hour would end and I'd be wanting to talk more.
Oh my, it has been half an hour. Thank you so much, Larry.
Diane,
my pleasure.
The book is called Immigrant Struggles, Immigrant Gifts. How do we get the book?
Amazon.com, and also the Immigrant Learning Center has a website, www.ilctr.org. ilctr.org.
Okay.
And we have a Facebook page.
Okay, all right, excellent. ilctr.org. And actually, Robin already has it to make it easy for everybody. Just go to WOCA.com and you'll see it on the guest list for today's show. Diane Portnoy, thank you so much, Diane.
And thank you.
We were spellbound by you. We'll take a little break and be right back.
You know the name. Gene Powell Pasture Mowing. Family owned and operated since 2002. They have free estimates. Just call them at 352-629-2440 for all your mowing needs. Gene Powell Pasture Mowing. 352-629-2440. They're there when you need them with the job well done. Gene Powell Pasture Mowing. 352-629-2440.
Digital Graphics Reborn. Phoenix Promotional Solutions. When you need vehicle wraps, banners, t-shirts, window graphics, you need to call Phoenix Promotional Solutions at 368-2404. 368-2404. When you need build